Comments from the community? Yes? Yep. All right. Then we will move on. All right, minutes from the last meeting.
Of course, I don't have the ones for the very last meeting, this is on, but did everybody get a chance to read them today, the ones I
Yes.
posted today?
I did, yeah. I didn't see any issue.
You have not?
No, I've not read today.
Did
I did
y'all,
read 'em.
okay, did y'all approve the minutes at the time at the meeting before?
No.
The meeting for that?
I think we didn't
Oh,
do that,
no.
or did we?
No.
I don't think so.
Okay, so this would have been from,
We're just lost without
that's
each other.
okay. Or, we didn't have a meeting on February 18th, right? It's February 4th.
That was President's Day.
Yes. So they would be from February 4th.
Yeah, we did
Nobody
not.
remembers? Okay.
No, I'm pretty sure.
Would everybody like for me to repost all those?
Let's do that all.
Okay, and I'll do them all at once, and then we can do them next meeting.
That sounds good.
We brought it up last meeting, and then for some reason we just moved on.
Yeah.
'Cause I think we were going to try to re-up during the meeting. So,
All right. Treasurer report, Pam's here. Sheriff's report. Do not see the new sheriff deputy. So,
President Rice?
So, Jackie,
Yes.
refresh my, at the last meeting, we spoke about the new resident deputy we're getting.
No, we talked about the new chief,
That
station
happened
chief.
afterwards.
Captain. We didn't know that Deputy Sofa was not going to be here until after the last meeting.
Okay. So Chuck, you,
So his replacement is Deputy Martinez. I don't know what Deputy Martinez's first name is. And his first day,
I thought it was
just either today or yesterday.
I thought it was yesterday.
okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you guys haven't heard from him, maybe, he says, Sofa said he talked to him and explained things to him. I'll see if I can send him or the captain.
Explain to avoid
How it
that.
works. Okay.
Told the meetings were on Tuesdays.
Okay,
Yes,
so
I know we talked about it at the last meeting, I just didn't remember where it came from.
Deputy
Yeah,
Martinez
okay.
is replacing.
Deputy Sofa.
Deputy Sofa.
Deputy Sofa transferred out and Deputy Martinez
Okay.
replaced.
Wow.
So we will, I think we should try to probably reach out to
Field station.
Honda Station and make sure that he has been informed of the meantime. If he shows up, we can put him back, plug him back in the agenda. All right. Mr. Jim.
Good evening. All right, just a few things to let everyone know about. First, in case anyone is a fan of the New York Times or likes to read it, but don't like paying for it, the library system as a whole, we have now a way to, you get a 24-hour pass to the New York Times website. Every day you can log on to our website, go to the little databases tab, and you can just say, hey, give me a new 24-hour pass, and it gives you access to the website, to all the New York Times articles, all the current stuff and everything.
From anywhere.
From any, access from anywhere, yes. The only thing I don't think that you can not get are the crossword puzzles. I know, I'm sorry. And for some reason I was told the cooking section.
Oh.
They don't want you to cook, I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But yeah, so it's a great thing, and it's free for you guys. Just every 24 hours, you have to click to get your pass. Upcoming programming. We are starting up the next round of our Parent Child Workshops. It's an opportunity for families with small children to come. There's educational toys and everything around this meeting room right here, and we also have a professional come in every week to talk one-on-one with parents if they have any questions about their kids and whatever profession the person is from. So that starts up next week, Tuesday, April 9th, and it runs the following 5 Tuesdays in a row, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., trying to catch the evening crowd, working parents and stuff. Other things coming up. This Saturday at 11 a.m., we're hosting a star party. Sounds kind of weird to host one in the middle of the day. But we've got telescopes that you can actually look at the sun and not go blind. We'll have those up on the patio here, you can check it out. One of them, you can actually see the solar flares off the sides of the sun. It's really kind of cool. And on your way out, if you look at the poster that's in the lobby, that's an actual photograph from our camera, from our telescope. So that's the kind of things you'll be seeing. Should be super interesting, it's cool. And if you're coming for that, you may want to stick around. We have the Young People's Art Show reception that afternoon. So up in the meeting room here, all this art, this is part of the Young People's Art Show. All kids, grades kindergarten to 12th grade, they've submitted art, and the reception is going to be Saturday at 3 o'clock. And then the last thing I will go on about is next weekend, Saturday, April 13th and Sunday the 14th, is the Friends of the Library book sale. They have a gajillion books that will be in here. I've seen the shed, it is packed to the gills. I'm not going to say I've contributed to it, but I have. Tons of great stuff to come by, pick through, grab a few books, help support the library, the friends, and all that. Other than that, that's what I've got. Anyone got questions, comments, concerns?
The 2 book signings are still on?
Yes, they are. They've got 2 local authors who will be here selling their books and doing a little bit of signing. All right. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Next up, Christian from Green Power Lines.
Clean.
I'm building a house on this.
Thank you very much for having me here today. I really appreciate it. One of the best parts of my job is I get to visit different communities that I've never had a chance to. So I really like doing these kinds of presentations because I get to visit these kinds of communities. So I appreciate you having me here tonight. So my name is Christian Cruz. I'm the outreach manager for the Clean Power Alliance. And so we're here to talk a little bit about what we do. So the Clean Power Alliance believes in a clean energy future that is local, where communities are empowered and customers are given a choice about the source of their energy. Previously, Southern California Edison was a provider of energy, and so we just provided another option to that. So what is Clean Power Alliance? So across the state, local governments are working to offer a combination of lower rates, more renewables, and more local power than investor-owned utilities. And when I say investor-owned utilities, SCE is considered an investor-owned utility. So Clean Power Alliance was formed in 2017 and is launching services with a phased approach. Most recently in 2019 in February, the residential rollout happened. So about approximately 900,000 customer accounts were rolled into our service. So that's roughly about 3 million total customers. And we're doing it for all municipal, commercial, and residential accounts. By the end of May, all commercial accounts are going to be rolled in. So we just offer, we're basically your electricity supplier. Now I explain a little bit more about what that actually means. So who do we serve? So Clean Power Alliance is a public entity formed through a joint powers authority. And so the way I like to explain that is, I used to work for a city council, and we have 7 members on that council. This is a board of 31 members, and so it's kind of a council on steroids. Everybody has a vote on that council, but it is a public agency. And so our members include various cities, so the city of Paramount, Culver City, Simi Valley, Oxnard, so big cities, small cities, and so they're all across Alley County and Ventura County. I did add another city, Westlake Village, recently. They're going to get rolled in the following year. It takes about a year to true them up and get them up to speed. But we're going to have 32 members by the end of 2020. And just kind of a little bit of background, LA County provided the seed money for the Clean Power Alliance to start, about $10 million, which we do have to repay by the end of 2020, and we are on task and on schedule to repay that back to the county. So your tax dollars will be repaid in a timely manner. So I talked a little bit about the phase approach. So in February of 2018, service began for municipal customers in unincorporated Los Angeles County. In June of 2018, service began for commercial customers in unincorporated LA County. and for municipal customers enrolling in those estates in South Pasadena. Why that happened is because these three entities were the first ones to adopt the JPA, or the legal document to institute the Clean Power Alliance, and so they were provided service from the beginning. Once that happened, other cities started signing on, 5 or 6 at a time, and we started rolling everybody in all at once in February of 2019. So we just wrapped that phased approach for our customers. And right now, our opt-out rate is 1%. So if you kind of look at it that way, it's a very, very small percentage in terms of opt-outs. And so in May of 2019, service will be expanded to all remaining non-residential customers. Businesses, large companies, things like that are going to start getting rolled in May. And so we're doing a lot of outreach for that. One of the things that we try to do, especially with the residential, is provide these little flyers. So everybody should have got a flyer, 2 prior to service and 2 after service, so 4 flyers in total. And that is mandated by the state so that everybody knows that this is happening. They're about this big, and everybody in the county that's going to receive service from us should have got those. So how does it work? Basically, we purchase renewables on behalf of our customers, which is anybody in LA County and the various Schedule I agencies. So SE is still responsible for the transmission and delivery of that power. We purchase the renewables on your behalf, and we provide that through SCE. So it's still kind of a partnership. The difference is going to be on your bill, instead of having SCE having the procured power, it's going to be CPA procuring that power on your behalf. So the bill's still going to be the same. It's still going to come from SCE, but it's going to be a line item on there that says CPA energy. And what I did is I provided you understanding your bill flyers in the back of the room. They're also available online, and it kind of explains exactly where those are. So LA County Unincorporated was rolled in at 50% renewable. What that means is SCE previously offered 32 to 34% renewable rate. We're offering more renewables at the same price, so you're not going to get charged any more than you normally would through SCE. The difference is you're getting more renewables with that content. So you're not going to get any additional charges to that, you're just going to get more renewables. And that was mandated by the Board of County Supervisors. So they decided that they wanted unincorporated residents in their territory to be rolled in at 50%. What that means is basically that is your starting point. Now you have a few options with that. There's a lean power, which is 36% renewable, and you would get to a 1 to 2% discount on your bill, and you would still get more renewables than you would with SCE. And so that was mandated by the board. The board wanted to make sure that regardless of what happened, that there was still a benefit to the customer, that there is more choice, but there's also an ability for a customer to opt down, receive renewables at a higher rate, but still enjoy a discounted rate as well. The next option is to go to 100% green power, and what that means is you're going to get 100% green power at a 7 to 90% premium. So if your bill is $100, for example, you would pay about $7 to $9 extra per month. Most people don't have $100 bills; they're a lot lower than that. So I myself told my wife that we should do the 100%. If that means just not getting a pizza that month, then that's fine. Because I believe in this, so I wanted to let her know that I'm willing to do that and see how it goes. And we still have the option to opt up or down if we wanted to. So that's what that means. The good thing about these options is you could opt down, you could opt up, you can stay where you're at, and if you still decide that this isn't for you, you could opt out. And what you would do is call our customer service line and say, you know what, I want to opt out to Clean Power, I want to opt up, or I want to opt out, and they'll walk you through the process and they can do so. So this is, as I like to say, it's just more options for you, and it's really up to you what you want to do and what's best for you. And as I explained a little bit about the opt-out process or opt-down and opt-up, is you would just need your bill and your account number. You would go to our website or call our customer service line, which is right here on the bottom right. Put in your information and just follow the steps. It doesn't take very long. Our customer service line actually has a pretty good record in the sense of if you call, it takes 65 seconds for them to make sure you're on online talking to someone. That's on the high end. For the most part, they're pretty good about making sure that they're really responsive to anybody that calls, and they're very knowledgeable, and they're able to help in any way that they can to make sure you get the service that you need. So we have 60 callers at our call center that are taking these calls, and like I said, I've gotten the data, and they're pretty responsive, and they're able to pick up the phone pretty fast. Finally, I wanted to put one thing out. There's the CARE program, the FARA program, and the medical baseline program. These are discount programs, so if you meet the qualifications for any one of these programs, say for example, if you're in the 100% renewable, you're not actually going to get charged a premium. The reason for this is because our board wanted to make sure that those communities that are impacted don't have to have an additional impact on them, because $3 may have a significant impact on their daily lives. So if they qualify for this, they actually get a 30% discount off of their bill on top of that, or a 12% if you're a FARA program, or if you're a medical baseline program, you get a discount as well, and you're not going to pay any more in renewable content, regardless of what tier you're in. So you're not going to be adversely affected if you are in one of these kinds of communities, but you have to meet the requirements. SCE does offer these programs, and we rolled in those customers as our customers in those specific programs, but you're still able to apply if you think you might be a person that might meet those requirements. We ask you to apply, please try, and you could receive an extra discount on top of that. So we encourage you to look into this as well. And finally, we have a lot of FAQs on our website, all detailed, depending on what kind of questions you're looking for. If it's solar energy, if it's what happens to your bill, what are the next steps, things like that. So it's pretty large FAQ. Sample SCE bill, all the documents that I provided today are all online and easy to access via PDF. And so I just kind of wanted to show you a little bit where our cost would come in. If you see number 6 right here, it's a little hard to see on your bill. You could see the CPA is going to be, which is a CCA is called. We're the CPA. The CCA is our kind of unofficial title. We're a community choice aggregate. Our actual title is Clean Power Alliance. So you'll see CPA though on your bill. And then right here under energy charge, you'll surcharge under 89. You'll see Clean Power Alliance generation charges, and they'll let you know what you're getting generated to your home. And again, we're not adding an additional charge. We're just taking over the energy procurement from SCE. So there isn't an added charge on top of that. So that's really the difference when you're looking at your bill. And again, we offer stable competitive rates, higher renewable content, local management and control. And I'd really like to point this local management and control because previously SCE, their main headquarters are up in San Francisco. So if there's an issue, you have to go to San Francisco to the PUC to make a formal complaint or otherwise. The difference is you have elected officials that sit on this board. They're able to you, the constituent, the customer. So you're able to go to LA County as board supervisors, to any one of these community meetings, to our committee meetings, and make your feelings known. And that's for the record. So you don't have to go all the way to San Francisco to do so. The other thing I wanted to point out is we have committees, energy procurement, we have the community advisory committee, and I am in charge of that committee itself, and we have 15 members on that committee from all 7 regions in LA County and Ventura County. These are not elected officials. These are actual community members from different areas around our service territory. They're volunteers with different types of backgrounds and expertise, but they're not beholden to the Clean Power Alliance. What they're there for is to advise the boards, our board, the 31 members, and let them know what they're hearing from the community, and to advise them on policy issues. And one big thing that they're going to be looking into is local programming. We want to make sure that the revenues that are being given to the CPA are going back into local programs to the community, whether it's EV stations or incentives. And so the CAC, the Community Advisory Committee, is going to be tasked with providing feedback in terms of how that money, those programs should be established throughout LA County and Ventura County. So that money will be going back to the community, and that is from the board directive, that is the mandate. They wanted to make sure that we're going to be providing those kinds of services back to the communities here locally. So that's where we're at right now, and I'll be happy to answer any more questions. Again, the customer service line is right there. We also have an email address. And then finally, we just launched our public comment at cleanpoweralliance.org. If you have any public comments, you cannot make it to Los Angeles County or to one of our committee meetings, you can provide comments online, and those are submitted to our board every month, and so they are for the record and they are followed upon. So please feel free to do so. Again, that's public comment at cleanpoweralliance.org, and it is online as well on our website.
Who is our representative on this community advisory board?
It would be, right now, Neil Frommer is
And where's he from? Where is he?
from Altadena. However,
There's none up in the Antelope Valley?
not yet, and so we actually do have one available position for unincorporated Los Angeles County that we're asking applicants to apply for. So there's an opportunity for someone from up here to apply for that position.
I was told 3 weeks ago it was filled. That's what I was
Someone dropped out right before the meeting, yeah, so we opened it up again. And then the application is actually online, but I could be emailed directly to provide that to you. So if you'd like, I can provide that link to you when I get back to the office, and I'll be more than happy to walk you through the process. It's a pretty simple application, about 2 pages, just a little bit of background, things like that. But we're more than happy to have any applicant that's interested put in their name as well.
You mentioned the PUC in San Francisco. They have adopted rules and regulations, and there's also statutory requirements they have to meet in terms of the California Public Utilities Code, as well as federal tariffs at the FERC. So there's lots of layers of regulations.
Yes.
Where are the rules and regulations that the Clean Power Alliance uses?
So we still have to follow the state mandates that the PUC puts onto SCE. One of the things that we kind of get a lot of questions about is the renewable content. It's like, how do we know we're actually getting renewables? And the California Energy Commission actually makes sure that as a state agency, they monitor what we do. So we still have to go back to the PUC. They still have some oversight on us.
On your rates? I understand. My question was not about renewable content. It was about fixing rates.
Right, and so the rates are still, the rates are developed by our board, by 31-member agencies in LA County, and that's a public discussion, and they establish those rates that way.
But so there's no formula. I mean, the PUC relies on a formula that Edison, every 3 years, Edison goes in for their rate approvals. And they have to follow this formula, and it's, their submittals are this big.
Yes, no.
Paper version.
Absolutely, there is a rate. We still have to follow what the SCE does in terms of the rate development. So when they change their rates, we change our rates simultaneously.
Okay.
So the difference that you're going to see is when they change their rates, then when we change it, we make sure that our rates are still at the 1 or 2%, the 50% even, or the 7 to 9% regardless of.
So you change your rates based on what their rates is, and you just decrement it. You don't go through the process of figuring out what the rates should be based on some sort of formula.
Such as the cost of procuring electricity.
Exactly, and also, installation costs and so on.
Right, and we still follow that formula. We still have to work with SCE in that sense. So I'll give you an example. Our COO was a former SCE employee, and so he still has to have those discussions in terms of how that is developed. So the rates formula that are being developed, we still have to follow that. We still have to make sure that our rates still follow along that way. So as we kind of go over the next few years, we still have to follow that formula, whether we like to or not. It's mandated.
So there's no tariff that you have to follow?
No, there isn't.
Okay.
I have two questions.
I believe by 2025, it is going to be a little different, and that's a very good question. So what you're alluding to is net service charge. At the end of the year, if you're positive, you have extra charges, you're going to actually get those credits back to you. So we actually offer 10%, which is more than Edison offers. The difference that you're going to see is instead, you true up at the time you switch over to CPA, and then you will true up again at the end of the year, whatever your reading date is over that year. What happens, a lot of people will true up and they'll have one large bill at the very end if they owe, or they'll have the credits returned back to them at the end of the year. The difference that you're going to see this time is every month you're going to actually get a bill that if you owe, then you can pay in small increments. And then at the end of the year, you don't have to pay a huge amount. But if you still have charges, or if you still have credits, we're going to provide you that check to you from the CPA in terms of credits. So that's the difference.
But it's not the amount per kilowatt hour, it's the spot market or something. It's like 3 cents kilowatt hour, not the 9 or 12 cents or 14 cents that you're charging. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
So it's the same paradigm that Edison uses.
Yes,
Net metering 2.0?
Well, yes,
Yes,
exactly.
exactly,
It's called
yes. The 2.0.
Yeah.
But if you're 1.0, and thank you for raising that, if you're 1.0, you're grandfathered in as well. So we're trying to maintain it as even as possible, but we do offer that 10% off NSC rate, which is more in terms of how much you're going to get back. Yes, sir.
My understanding is we're automatically put into this program. Why would I want to stay in the program rather than opt out?
That's a good question, and yes, it is. Very good question, tonight, so appreciate it. So it is automatic opt-in. The way that's not because CPA wanted to do it that way. In 2002, there was a state law that mandated that automatic roll in, and then people could choose to opt out if they decided to. The reason you really would want to stay in, if you choose to, is because you do have these various options in terms of losing power. You can get a little bit of discount, you get a little bit more renewable at the 50%. But we offer more renewable at the high end, whereas SC does not. Again, we're just procuring the energy, so that's really something that you have to consider in terms of what your bill looks like, what benefits you're going to see out of the program, and it's really up to you. What you can do is call a customer service line and say, you know what, I want to try this out over the next 6 months, but at that time I want to be opted out if it doesn't make sense, and they can do that for you. So you have different options. To us, you're going to be enjoying more renewables for a discounted rate, or you're going to be enjoying more renewables for parity. It's really up to you if you want to go to the 100% renewable, but we encourage people to weigh those options. Call our customer service line, go online and see what makes sense. We actually have a bill calculator as well, so you can input your information and see what differences there are in terms of what our service is, and in terms of what SCD services is. But I always tell people, you know, please go do this and find and see what makes sense for you. And we're here just to provide options. I'm not trying to decide on staying with CPA or not. It's really up to you.
One thing I saw with this that I thought would be a really good advantage is, I know, for example, at a recent school board meeting, maybe sometime late last year, a presentation was made to the school board by a company that comes in and puts shade structures over parking lots in schools. Mm-hmm. And what they were offering to the school board was, you pay, here's a contract, it's good for 30 years, it's this fixed rate, and you have to pay for all the power under this contract. If you don't use all the power, you still pay for it. And if you use more, then it's some other rate that wasn't very clear. And I thought that the rates that they were going to give the board for the school district were quite high. I was surprised. So I asked the gentleman a few questions, and he answered some questions from the board, and he said straight up that he will not be selling power to Southern California Edison or any other generator. And I put another card in, and I pointed out that during the peak generation for this facility, the school isn't even open. So most of the power generated by these shade structures will not be used or even sent to the school. It'll be out on the grid for others to use. So I found, I find it implausible and unbelievable that the person offering, the company offering to put these shade structures in, is not going to take the power you're not using and sell it for 39 cents a kilowatt hour to neighbors. Right. So the point of all that was I was very bothered by this deal that I didn't think was that great of a deal for the school board. So I thought one thing that the CPA could do is go to places like schools, which don't get the 30% federal credit, right, because they don't pay income tax, and give them a vehicle to put a reason that you pay for putting the solar in there, you're buying turbines and so on and so forth, as renewable energy, and then they get their shade structure, but they're not locked into this contract that looks, in my opinion, was not fair and was heavily biased and was not a reasonable thing.
Absolutely, and you know what? We're actually reaching out to all these large customers like school districts to have these kinds of discussions right now. And you do make a good point. These are third parties that we have no control over. However, if there's a way that we can find a program that would make sense, we want to have those discussions. So as we're doing a reach out, we're hearing from large commercial customers and school boards what makes sense for them. And so that's still on the table, as I mentioned. These are local programs, and when I say local programs, it doesn't just mean residential, it means commercial, it means larger companies that would make sense that that should be a program that should be provided.
Well, what is a school district? It's not a corporate. and
No.
It's not residential. Is it municipal?
It would be under municipal, yeah.
Okay.
So does Clean Power Lines do any generation of their own, or are you just acquiring what's on the open market? In other words, do you guys have your own solar farms? Are you putting in turbines, or are you doing any of that? Or is it strictly you're just buying the open market at bulk and then selling, reselling basically?
Well, we do buy on the open market, however, we did purchase turbines over in the Mojave Desert.
So you do have your own generation?
We have our own generation, and as a matter of fact, we're going through what's called PPA, Power Purchase Agreement, procurement. We had 250 projects submitted for us to review and to go into a power procurement. We have 9 on the short list that we're going to be negotiating with. I can't provide you with those names or that information, but we are developing our own generation. It's just as we're kicking off, we're trying to do the 15-year and the 30-year procurement. But that's a great question. We do have those turbines, and I wish I had a picture of them because it's not too far. We visited there, and when we talked to the agency that put these turbines up, that project would have never happened without the Clean Power Alliance. So right off the bat, we're actually generating and providing clean renewable energy. But there are going to be more projects, and we're going to continue to do that every year to develop more and more generation, so that we're not just buying out the open market. We're actually providing this.
So California's got some of the highest power rates in the country. I mean, I've seen power rates go up into the 60 cents a kilowatt hour. Okay. So, and it's a major amount of our budget. We spend a lot of money on electricity every month, and it costs us a lot. So when I see Clean Power Lines coming in and saying, we're going to hold 2% lien under Edison, I ask myself, well, why isn't the Clean Power Lines coming in and trying to provide us solutions that are much better than what we're currently paying to Edison? And you say, we're purchasing generation facilities. How about partnering up with the communities and purchasing those generation facilities on our homes to get us down out of the 60-cent kilowatt hour California burden that we have here? Because what I hear is we're going to always parallel the Edison price, and then this money's going to go into programs. But
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
the customer is the people that need the relief.
Yeah.
And I think, I know you're going to have this community meetings, you're looking for the outreach, but if Clean Power Lines is interested in buying generation, I think it would be fantastic if they really take a hard look at buying generation on individual homes.
Or on schools.
Or on schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
Not just municipalities and not just big, huge utility scale projects out in the Mojave Desert.
Yeah.
There are already, I think it's 45,000 acres put over to solar in the Antelope Valley. And they're going to double that. And that's, it's just elimination of the desert.
Right. And to your point, what you're talking about is like microgrids, where you're self-sustaining, you bring in your own power, you generate your own power, you develop it, and you're basically off the grid. So yes, it would be nice, and we want to continue to do that. Again, we're barely kicking off now, so as the revenue develops, that's going to be available at some point to have those kind of discussions and say, you know what, the power is, the price per kilowatt hour is very high. What can we offer our customers, our constituents, in order to bring that down? And that's really the goal, is really to make sure that we're fair in the sense of pricing, but also providing those other options on top of that. But that's a great point, and I appreciate that.
Well, but am I correct in understanding that what you're really doing is price matching minus a % or 2 for the lead power option?
Not necessarily. So we are mirroring a little bit what the rates are with SCE. However, there is consideration in terms of just bifurcating that and making it where CPA isn't just beholden to those rates. In terms of making sure that this is viable and this is going to be sustainable in the long run, we kind of have to follow that at this point. But that doesn't mean we're going to be in line with SCE the whole time. That's not the whole point of this. The whole point is to find a way to bifurcate that at some point, if that's even possible. But we're looking into that now. Not saying that it is possible, but there is those discussions. And do we have to be beholden to the SCE ratings at this point? And those conversations are happening now at a board. That happened this last time. It's going to be probably again on the 4th, which is this Thursday. We're going to have those kinds of same discussions. How can we just kind of take that away? Well, we can offer more of a discount. So those discussions are happening.
Right.
To Tom's point, on the Sunrise proceeding, which was a big SDG project in San Diego that the DEC approved, they actually found that the environmentally preferred alternative was in situ generation, and they calculated there was enough roof space in the San Diego area to supply all the electricity plus more than what this giant power line is going to bring.
Yeah.
So clearly, you know, the math is there that shows that what Tom's suggesting is so much of a better idea. And we needn't destroy, you know, the desert to do it. We have rooftop deserts we can use. No,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Or thread 500 kilovolt lines to communities.
And to both your points, our community advisory committee, actually a member from Ventura County, made that exact point, saying we have to find a way to get our municipal facilities and other facilities we can to start developing solar, so we can start utilizing it. So when I say the CAC is really trying to gauge this, they're extremely local. I've dealt with elected official committees and I've run those. This is a lot different. They're not holding back, they're holding us accountable. And he really brought up, his name is Steve Nash, and he really brought that issue that we need to have this discussion now. But thank you.
What's the COO's name?
It's, our CO is Matt Langer.
So is this not PV? Okay.
No, Matt Langer is our COO.
So for the board, you mentioned it quite a few times, what is the term, or how, once somebody's on the board, is there an election process and every so often, or is this once you're on, you're kind of on until cows come home? What's the...
So our board of directors are appointed, so the representative on the board is appointed by the individual jurisdiction. So LA County, Kuhl, she was appointed by the board of supervisors. So depending on whatever city you may be living in, that city council appoints their member and an alternate. So if that member cannot attend, the alternate usually does, and we offer remote locations. So for example, if someone from Ventura County cannot come to LA, they are on a remote call and they're able to input information. But they are the elected official from that city, and they're the ones that put them on the board.
So, but we don't vote for Sheila. So why should she listen to concerns we have about our desert?
Well, you're right, you don't vote for her, but Catherine Barger is your supervisor, and she still has to report to the larger board of supervisors.
Oh, she does, okay.
She has to,
All right.
yes. So your representative, and she actually asked us as well about making sure that we're doing outreach in her
She
district.
being Ms. Barger?
Ms. Barger, yes.
Supervisor.
Supervisor Barger, to make sure we do outreach in her district. We are doing that because there is still that kind of, so the CPA, whether the board member is either Sheila Kuhl or somebody else on the board, we still have direct lines to each of the supervisor's office to make sure that they know what's going on. As they get these reports, it's not new when they hear it on the dais. They already know about it. So we have those conversations pretty consistently. Our executive director, Ted Barnicky, briefs them pretty often as well. So there is that still dynamic. So it's just not one board member. You have to talk to everybody. Actually, the city councils. If a city council member has a question that doesn't sit on the board, doesn't mean we don't answer the questions or his questions. We still do. And we still provide presentations as they see fit.
But here's the problem, and I certainly have nothing against going to 100% renewable. I have solar on my house, and I've seen what your rates have done, and I'm not unhappy with it, so I've not switched, at least not yet. But there is no area more than the Antelope Valley, including Acton, that's affected by this renewable energy and 100% renewable than any place in the state of California. We have, Path 26, we have all the high voltage power lines. Vincent is the primary node for serving all of Southern California. There's another one in San Bernardino. But, so we have all of the impacts, all right? Now, a lot of power plants are being closed down in South Bay, which is fine because of the ones through cooling and everything.
Right.
And they're moving those power plants up here. We have the Palmdale Power Project, which was first said to be solar, but it was really only 50 megawatt solar and like 450 megawatts gas turbine. So they're closing those plants down, setting plants up here, and then putting all the transmission facilities and all the renewable energy up here. So we're more impacted by the paradigm you're embracing, which I don't oppose, than any other place in the whole state, really, if you count all the acreage that's been taken up for renewable. So it's really important for our concerns to be heard, and so I don't know how to do that, and I'm not comfortable with just having Supervisor Kuhl, who's very conscientious and very
she's a great gal, but she's never here, you know, you don't have a direct link to her, so.
And you know what, and that is a good point. You want your voice to be heard. One thing I will say is we take into consideration the impact on the local environment as part of our procurement process when we have an RFO, the request for offer from various projects. Part of that is environmental impact. We don't want to invest in a project that's going to have an adverse environmental impact, so we actually put that in the scoring as well to make sure that that is taken into consideration. In terms of Supervisor Kuehl sitting on the board, it is difficult to try and say, I need to talk to someone about this, but she's not your district representative. Barger is. Again, I would point you to the public comment section, and while it is an email and maybe perceived that nobody's checking it, we do check it. We make sure that that is put into the public record. If there's anything further, our staff is quite open to anybody providing any more input. I am open. If you were to email me and say, you know what, we want to make heard on these issues, I'm providing that to our board chair. I'm providing that to our executive director. So you're not going to get a manager somewhere in the middle. You're going to get those comments to somebody. But one of the reasons I really enjoy working for the Clean Power Alliance is because I believe in environmental policy, but also I wanted to be a public servant, and to be a good public steward is to provide the community a voice. And so by doing certain things like providing public comment to us directly or to the board directly at the meetings themselves or via remote, that's a way to do it. So your voice is not going to not be heard, if that makes sense. You are our providers. If you were to go to Supervisor Barger's representative out here and provide them feedback, they're going to be contacting us as well. So don't feel like you cannot go to Supervisor Barger's office. They'll be more than happy to listen to you and get those comments back to us.
I can't speak for Jack. I think I can. My concern is that I'm not questioning whether there would be reception to things. There's just no throat to choke, so to speak.
Right.
If I don't like something that Barber's doing, I can choose to not elect her, right?
Right.
Whereas Kuehl, I have no recourse if I don't like what Kuehl's doing, other than to go tap Barber and say, hey, I don't like that. And then she's just one voice. So I appreciate what you're saying about representation, but really in this case, I don't think it has any representation. It's direct enough. It's basically,
It's another
it's a
layer.
bureaucrat. It's basically what it is. It's so far removed from us that we don't have any recourse. So if there is something that's going on, we feel is, we may take the environment in consideration, but let's say they're going to string more lines across a particular area, and that's actually maybe not necessarily an environmental concern, but a quality of life concern that people around there. I don't know that, that Kuehl's going to care, because there's nothing to do with their district. Maybe she does, maybe she doesn't. But I definitely don't have any recourse to go to her and have anything expected of her at that point. So I think that's probably a lot of what our concern is. We're feeling very much like we are cut off from having any direct impact into what's going on. And, as you kind of said before, Neil, I think you said Neil Frommer was our rep. I mean, he's cleared in Timbuktu, and just because we have the opportunity to apply, or somebody in the community doesn't mean they're going to be selected. So we can end up with somebody from Mr. Frommer's area getting elected too. I mean, I don't know. So that's just what I'm saying is there's just not anything clear of how we would have any kind of representative voice in a position of power to make decisions.
Yeah, I certainly understand that, and as part of that, while Sheila is on the board and Barger is your representative, and there is kind of that disconnect, and I certainly understand that. However, again, Supervisor Barger still has the opportunity to discuss these issues to bring to the larger board. So it's not like if Supervisor Sheila Kuehl has a vote, she's really talking on behalf of the entire board of supervisors, not just herself on these kinds of boards. So there is that kind of connection there. But I understand what you're saying. On the flip side, the CAC, while we are submitting applicants, we want to get them properly. We want to make sure that it's as diverse as possible. So in terms of getting another person from, say, Neil's area, that's not going to happen. We're looking into other people that fit the person that has the best impact to that community. And that doesn't mean it's just going to be him. And just so, within his area. And just so you know, Neil actually, he's a professor at Caltech. So his whole thing's been renewable energy. So he's not just speaking for Altoona. One of the things that I did with each of my committee members is provide them kind of context and background in terms of what the CAC is going to be doing and what we want them to look into, as well as what they're going to be able to provide to us. But we also make sure that they understand that they're not speaking for themselves as, say, an Altadena resident, or they're not speaking for themselves as a South Pasadena resident. They're speaking for themselves as an unincorporated LA County resident. That means everybody. And they understand that, which is one of the reasons why, as we vetted them, we wanted to make sure that it wasn't just someone's axe to grind in one area. It's taking into account everybody's views.
I understand, but it is, as Jack kind of highlighted, we are in a unique zone.
Yes.
And so I don't actually expect anybody from another zone to understand without having lived here or spent time here. It's something we go on oftentimes with the county, who is close by, is until they actually come out and see and feel and look at how things are set up. It's not necessarily clear from even a map or driving through, kinds of things. So
yes,
so I appreciate and I trust what you're saying. It's just it's a hard thing to accept because it's not our experience has been in the past with things that were kind of governed from afar.
And I do get that. I do appreciate your perspective, because you're right. Unless you live in that community, you really don't know what happens within that community, which is why get on your reps and make sure they understand what's going on and be a voice in that way so that we know what's going on. But again, I'm always available. I am a public steward. I am available via email or a phone call. If you feel you're not getting that kind of service from somebody, please contact me. We'll find a way to make sure that your voices are heard. And I may not live in your community, but I still care about what we're trying to do. So I'll do anything I can to help you with anything that I can. But I continue to hold us accountable, is what I was saying. We're not afraid of that because you have to hold us accountable.
As an example, what Jeremiah's talking about, recent solar facilities that have been permanently in Antelope Valley. This is pointed out to regional planning. They never look at cumulative impacts. They're required to under CEQA. But they just say, oh, it's only 20 acres. It's only 700 acres. It's only 500. It's only 1,200 acres. It's not cumulatively considerable. And when I told the gentleman that it was like, I can't remember, it's 35,000 or 45,000 acres. His eyebrows popped out because they don't, they're supposed to be looking at it each time they add. So we've asked them to start with environmental impacts, but we have problems with how they do it here oftentimes.
Absolutely.
So commenting in the CEQA process, which is sometimes challenging, I'll just put it like that, getting heard. I mean, there's nothing like knowing that you've sent in a letter and knowing it's just been filed and probably not even read. So, at least with this, might be reaching out to you both ways, so the CEQA and for if it's a PPA for your organization. So
absolutely, and I appreciate those concerns. I think that's a very good way to look at this, more of a cumulative aspect to it. I'll make sure that our procurement director knows what was discussed today, and I'll make sure that she briefs us on how that's taken into account. So thank you, but I appreciate that. That's a very good point.
I'm sorry, just go back to the myriad of rates. So the 34 municipalities or whoever's part of this alliance now, they're going to take a big amount of buying power away from Edison when buying electricity on the market. So in 3 years when Edison has to go and to PSC for its rates again, are they going to say, hey, we lost 50% of our buying power, we got to raise our rates, and then our mirrored rates are going to follow that as well? Is that something that's been considered, or?
It has been considered, so
because California has a really bad track record for buying electricity.
yeah.
And it seems like we might be setting ourselves up here in Southern California for another problem.
Yeah. Thank you. So the way I see, if they misinterpret the data or they do something where they realize, hey, we under-collected, they have the opportunity to go to the PUC and say, we want to collect what we didn't get in the end, which is kind of what they did this go around. So rates will be going up. It's called the PCIA, or the exit fee. But that's going to go to everybody, regardless of your CPA or SCE customer. The reason for that is because they went into these 30-year agreements many, many years ago, and they're not getting a good buyback for their return. So on their end, they're deciding that they wanted to raise their rates. Now that impacts everybody, including ourselves, because now that they have to raise the rates, we have to see what that means. So we still have to make, the mandate still is, we still have to offer parity and discount and the 78 to 90% to 100% renewable. But you're right, I mean, if they mismanage how they're looking at their forecasting, that's a possibility. But that's just SE, doing what they need to do on their end for whatever reason. But we try to make it so that we're providing at least a different choice. It's not a huge discount, but it is an option for at least somebody.
Right. I'm sorry I keep harping on this, but it just seems to me that the parity idea discounts every rule of business when it comes to pricing something. Because you're pricing based on parity, and the actual cost of procurement may be higher or lower, and it just doesn't make sense to me. I'm sorry, I have trouble getting past that. How you can say we're always going to be mirroring within 1% until something changes in the policy. It just seems like it's going to be problematic somewhere in the future.
Plus, there's probably at least 6% profit built into Edison's fees. So when you only come down 2%, you're still got 4% profit. You're a government, you're not supposed to have any profit. So
Well, you're right, and we're not making a profit. That money still has to go back into the local program.
Right, which you explained to this gentleman.
And so, but to your point, I think that is an issue of, but I also look at it in the sense that our staff is very, very lean compared to, like, say, an SME staff, which is why we're able to offer these discounts. It is a government agency. And I'll give you an example. Right now, there's 15 members on our staff. One of those members does procurement. We just hired one person to help her out, whereas SE has 300 people in just that one department. So we're a lot leaner in that sense. So as revenues start coming in, you will see more going back in the community in terms of what we're not profitable. We're not keeping that money. So
Right.
I can see
when
what
you
you
say
say
back in the community, we will obviously, be putting public comment.
And I like the way you put it. It is a good opportunity to change that, and that's really something that we're going to be looking into, and we're going to take the opportunity to show you why this is a good option. And it's really up to you.
I'll add one more impact. We have the Vincent Station is going through hardening. I don't know when they're doing it, but they're going to terrace harden that thing. Okay, and there's another reason to get off of this. Generate here, ship over here. Distributed system is much more reliable. And,
Absolutely.
They keep pushing for this huge transmission lines. And yes, it's great for Edison and it's great for a lot of people, but it's not good for the individual users.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you for your comments.
I just have a comment. I don't have solar on my house, but I would hope that you take it into consideration.
And some of your history as well, with Rite Aid and Taco Bell and all the rest. Didn't mean to interrupt. So I guess the first point is, let's look at the location, and I can give you a better sense of it. You can see it a little bit here. Forgive my fumbling, I'm used to using a mouse. Okay, so you have Soledad Canyon and Crown Valley. Are people familiar with this area, or do I need to go more into it? And one other thing,
Unless you have an APN on your web phone.
ATN,
Yeah.
it is
He has an
3209 017 019, 3209 017 019.
Thank you.
Is it by the Ace Hardware or is it down by Thousand Trails?
1,000 trip.
We good?
Right, actually, down there is 1,000.
So it's on the north side of Soledad?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And that's on the side of the power lines are up there, so.
And I'll actually have pictures in a minute. I just want to get through some of the basics here. So, based on our previous experience with Acton, we understand some of the concerns. We've heard them in the past. We understand your concern about your views. You don't want us doing stuff that's going to be on a ridge, that's going to ruin your view of that ridge. We understand that. You don't want a tower smack dab in the middle of a bunch of residences. No matter what we make that tower look like, you're not interested. You're not interested in, I don't think you'd want us to do a site that looks like solar panels Sounds to me, I'm just guessing. So we have spent some time looking at this, and this is what we think is best, but that's why I'm here to find out if we're way off. Okay, let's go to a picture, just a drawing of the site itself. Please, I don't care about Adobe at this moment.
Escape.
Yeah, escape, yeah. There we go, thank you. Okay, so what are we proposing? These cell sites are all have basics that are the same. Antennas on a pole, whatever. Given this community, this is what we think might work for folks in terms of what just the appearance is. So we're proposing a water tank. We could do a windmill. Doesn't sound like that also would go over well, and that doesn't go over well for us because it's hard to hide the antennas. With this water tank, you'll see, and we show the antennas, but these antennas are inside the tank. They are not visible from the public. The only way you see them is going up inside that tank. We don't recommend that. And then down below is where the associated equipment will be inside this CME wall. It's an 8-foot CME wall. Everything is inside the CME wall. The tower and all the associated equipment are inside. Okay.
75 feet tall, that tower?
That's tall.
That is correct. The heights that we are looking for correspond directly to the coverage that we're trying to provide, which is the whole point of putting up the site. And obviously, if you have an antenna that's 10 feet off the ground, it's not going to reach as far as an antenna that's 75 feet up in the ground. And of course, it's not 10 or 75, it's incremental.
But it's quite a ways up the hill. It's not at the bottom, the foot of the hill. It's
No, we go
more
back
than
to it.
halfway up,
We
right?
have a topographic sheet that can show you the elevations we needed. I think the pictures will make this more clear. Why don't we move on with
If
this?
you're gonna cover this, you can tell me to hush, but is this only gonna be for LTE phone access, or is this going to be fixed, any kind of fixed service provided for home use? I know in the past, I think the last time you were out here, there was some point-to-point type home use that was going to be proposed, in addition to some phone service.
My understanding is this is not part of that
Okay.
program.
No, just curious.
Okay, this is more like a normal standard cell site that would go anywhere.
And will this have the first responder piece as well?
When I was here and the LA County Sheriff got up and talked about areas
Yeah.
where he could
Yeah.
not even, in his words, speak with his dispatcher.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you also remember, he was mentioning,
First
they're all on AT&T.
Yeah.
And so an AT&T cell site like this would absolutely provide coverage where they didn't have it before for AT&T. I don't want to oversell
Yes, except
this.
for AT&T we've supported towers for AT&T before,
Yes.
put them up, then sold them, and there are no AT&T services on them. So that right?
Yeah, so
Hauser Mountain.
on Hauser Peak, there was an AT&T tower, which is now Sprint.
And all the AT&T service is gone. So, and I know I've asked you this question before, if we support this and then AT&T sells it like they have before, then we're back to where
We can't count on that as being a feature.
yeah.
I can
So
tell you,
can we guarantee, we can ask the county to put it in as a condition that if we support this, you're gonna provide the first net. No, that's a condition of use. So if you don't provide the first net, the tower itself needs to be down.
They sold the tower, as long as they
It
have
has
the
to
first
be
net in
there.
place, then they can stay.
Right.
and that's something I can really address because that's between you and the planning department.
No, but I mean, is that something that you couldn't do?
Honestly,
Because we're not interested in recommending a condition that can't be implemented.
I'll tell you, I'll give you an honest answer. I haven't run into this question before. And the reason that that's actually relevant here is that this just doesn't happen very often.
Yeah.
My wife's I've been in this 6 or 7 years. She's been in since the late 80s when cell sites started. I can tell you from my experience, I am not aware of an AT&T stop tower being sold to somebody. It's just that, I don't doubt that it happens. I'm sure that it happens. In more cases than this one. I can tell you in my experience, and I've done dozens upon dozens, if not 100 sites, I have not seen one case of one of my sites being sold. Or even hearing about it.
It happens in this community all the time. We support something and then what we end up with is different. And that's a real sore point for us.
I understand. I'm from Lake Arrowhead. I live in Lake Arrowhead.
I
I
know.
have many of the same concerns that you all have. And it's not concerns I got from living in Mission Viejo, I can tell you. I can't make any guarantees, and I can tell you that it is not cheap to put up these cell sites. And I don't see the business sense. I don't think AT&T is in the business of putting up cell sites so they can sell them to somebody else. It may happen. There could be any number of reasons why a particular case goes that direction. I think it's a very, very rare case in my experience.
Yeah, it's not uncommon though for telecommunication companies to go into a field and then later decide not to go into that field
Right,
anymore.
it's a costly endeavor.
You know, I think they have collaboration between different providers. So for example, some of their towers are going straight to Sierra Highway Verizon cable. So they go together and they can put other providers on the tower as well. So I think today with everything is collaborating with others in order to get a good communication. If it's not one, it's another, but they are all together on that.
But in the case of FirstNet, it's only AT&T.
They have the contract.
So you can't, Verizon doesn't carry FirstNet. Verizon doesn't serve our first responders, so
Right.
it has to be a FirstNet system. That's why question.
Just a comment real quick, when you said the location of that in AT&T, the media, the thing I thought of was exactly their concern is that's a huge dead area for the computers in the car, in the sheriff's car, radio, stuff like that. So I thought that as a huge advantage, a plus to have it being able to have, if you have the FirstNet there, because once you go around that bend, you don't get anything back there.
So it sounds like you would support, if we supported this,
That,
and ask for a condition of, it must
me
have
personally,
FirstNet.
yes.
Well, as a resident, I mean, that's what we want to hear.
Right, yeah, exactly. You know, resident and deputy.
Just a personal thing for you all, the planning department responds to this kind of thing. And I can tell you, after I heard the sheriff get up, the next time I had a chance, I met with the senior LA County planner and talked to him about those comments made by LA County Sheriff. And their response was, John, anything you can do to get that information to us when there's that kind of a deficiency, we need to know that. This is a tangible benefit.
Yeah, I mean, you have to drive out of the canyon to an area to sometimes to relay the information, you know.
But you understand, though, if we ask that as a condition, it's put in a condition, and FirstNet goes away, we're gonna ask for that tower to be taken down.
Like I said, if whatever you guys
Okay.
do with planning is not something that, I would like your support.
Right.
Beyond that, I'm not some,
Yeah, but I
I
want
don't represent planning or
I
anything.
know, but I want you to understand what we're asking for, because oftentimes a permit is issued and the county doesn't follow through with its conditions. So if we hear from the sheriff's department, like, oh, FirstNet doesn't work anymore there, we're gonna know that FirstNet's gone, so we're gonna reach out to the planning department and say, hey, this CUP isn't complying with this condition. So I don't want that to happen, that's why I'm making sure you understand what it is exactly that we're asking for.
On every new site we do, virtually every one that's on public property, not on National Forest Service, we get approval with COAs. We go to a hearing, we get COAs, and we have until the end of the appeal period to say, no, 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 we can't live with that particular COA or that one. We appeal the COA.
You mean the CUP?
No, the conditions of approval,
Oh,
that's
on
exactly
a
what you're
conditional,
talking
isn't
about.
this for a conditional use permit?
Oh, yes.
Okay, right.
So we have a finite period, we have a deadline, and we can either not agree or agree. And so whatever you guys come up with, if the planning department includes that in the COAs, then we're obligated to either abide by them, or we appeal them, or we do nothing and then we have to abide by them.
Yeah, well, we'd rather work them out with you ahead of time, so there is no appeal on either side. So
Tell me again exactly what you're looking for, and I'll give you my opinion about what I think it looks like.
if the community supports this, with the proviso that it always provide FirstNet.
I don't know what FirstNet is.
Okay, so FirstNet is.
Or SmartLink or the other one you used.
Yes, well, so FirstNet is the contract that LA County has, first responders, firefighters, police, has with AT&T to provide network coverage.
Is this a LA Bricks kind of deal?
It is like that.
And so what we're saying is, if the community supported this, under the condition that this tower exists while that exists. That contract's good for, I don't know, it's like 25, 30 years, something ridiculous. It could get renewed, could not. But if AT&T sold this tower 5 years from now, and FirstNet disappears, then community would be then asking, whoever's owning the tower at that point, yank the tower down because the condition of it.
Or put FirstNet back
Or put
up.
FirstNet back.
Yeah.
I'm not qualified.
No,
to answer
no,
this
no,
from
no.
a legal perspective or anything. I would say, God,
You can see the community is refining its
I am-
position on these towers.
and
And that's because of what we see over time.
Well, and we understand the importance of
Reduce
having a
that.
FirstNet, but we don't want, it's like Jackie said, a little bit of bait and switch if we say yes, and then a Mount Hauser 2.0 happens on that side, and now it's a Sprint tower. And that doesn't
And
do,
no emergency
there's no emergency services, and and then we could say, well, they usually don't do that, but I will argue and say, yeah, but this is a pretty not dense area, so at some point, AT&T may go, we're making like $50 having this tower here. This doesn't really make a lot of sense financially for us because we don't have a lot of AT&T subscribers on that side of the mountain. So we're going to sell it to Sprint. Sprint has a bunch of them, or whatever. I also can understand, which is probably the reason why Hauser flipped over too, is they probably at some point go, financially it's costing us more to run the tower than it is revenue coming out of the tower. Let's ditch it. So I think that's just our concern, is that something happens along those lines. And on that side of the mountain, I don't know if we have any residents in here from that side. What service do you have over there?
Verizon only.
Verizon,
so-
but I.
Yeah, so, it's already from
can I ask if that's a bad or a good comment?
I just wanted to make a statement. Not even a week ago, we had to call 911 twice and got no form of service whatsoever. Had to end up driving someone to the emergency room. 45-minute delay in that, and so that was one thing that I support this, but under conditions limited what it's got.
You probably have
Yeah,
an easier sell to
feelings.
the community based on what they're saying, with the, I forget what.
FirstNet, yeah.
FirstNet, then because of like what they're saying.
Yeah, because what we're saying is, yeah, if you have Verizon.
Otherwise, it's just an eyesore.
Yeah, so the tangible upside would be that, hey, there could be an emergency benefit. Otherwise, there's Verizon coverage.
Right.
So there's.
You're saying Verizon is not reliable, or you?
Verizon didn't work. There was, I think, 3 different services we got there. It was an event. 911 was called. Nobody could reach ambulance services. Person had to be put into the car, taken to the hospital. We're located right before Shamrock.
I just actually switched from AT&T, and I lived in the area, to Verizon. But AT&T was very minimal service also. But I still got it in certain places, just very few and far between.
What's the deadline for this? Just curious.
I'm sorry?
Your deadline, you mentioned a deadline.
For-
What was proposed to the county?
This has been submitted formally, the CUP application has been submitted. It's currently in the process of review. Part of that review process is they ask us to come out and meet with you and to get the community input. The project has absolutely not gone to hearing yet. It has not been approved. It is not in an appeal period or anything else. We are in just a normal processing time, red tape.
When was it submitted? Just approximately, like
No, it's
January,
okay. I have-
December, October?
With my memory, I have dates for everything. It was submitted on 1/30/19 at 9:30 in the morning. And that was submitted, and,
Not 9:31 in the morning?
well, it was 9:31, but my wife made my, no, it's a necessity as one ages in my case, please. To get to your question, the original point, I don't know if legally you will even be able to get that included in your COAs. I don't know if legally AT&T will agree to it.
I would guess they would.
Well, it's really important for
I
support the
understand.
community.
My suggestion is call a planner. Would you like the planner's name assigned to this case?
Is it, who is it? Jersey?
Oh, I don't have her name on the bill.
Oh, it's not her. Adrian Ing?
No, it's not Adrian, Christina. Who
Carlton?
I spoke, was the person I spoke to about the first
Carlton?
responders.
Carlton, I mean?
Carlton?
Christine Carlton?
No, Christina Kozuki.
Oh, Kulchicki, okay.
Kozuki.
Kulzcki,
Oh,
great.
It's
yeah.
like Coach K at Duke. I don't know.
Is the tower similar to the one that's in Abu Dhabi? Is it
well, I don't know,
Yeah,
it's
it's
not
not
75.
75.
It's pretty tall, but it's hard to tell because it's set back.
It's part of the community.
I'm honestly, I
No,
don't know.
yeah, he's not through there. I'm familiar with what he's talking about, and yes, I'm not sure on the height comparison, because I don't know how tall that one is, but that is what it should be.
So as a community member who lives on that side of the planet, I would be in favor of this as well. Our service is pretty bad where I live as well. And I'm sorry, I'm kind of coming in on the end of this. So you work for AT&T, or are you working for a private property owner who's getting an easement, or, I'm sorry, go.
And in general, AT&T, Verizon, Sprint, T-Mobile, they don't want to do the work that I'm doing.
I see.
Or they don't want to go through the rates. It's nothing personal, I can assure you. They don't want to, they chose as part of their business model to not include this part of putting the cell site out.
Gotcha.
So I work for a private company. My wife is actually a partner in the company. We are employed by AT&T, Verizon, whatever the carrier is, when they want to put a new cell site.
All right, thank you.
But I am absolutely not an AT&T.
Thank you.
Will Verizon or any other carriers be able to piggyback
I didn't
off this
understand.
tower? Will Verizon or any other carriers be able to piggyback off this tower?
Will they be able to? Absolutely. Will a jurisdiction, if a different carrier proposes a cell site within a quarter mile of this by county ordinance, they will be pushed to co-locate on the existing tower rather than put up a second tower. And this is in their ordinance, the quarter mile radius, I believe is the amount.
Where's the closest tower to this?
I do not.
I think it probably should come up.
I just don't
Do you
have a
have
list
a-
of all the stuff that.
Can you provide because we've seen this before in other towers, height versus coverage
Yes,
map?
yes,
That would
we
be
provide
very-
coverage maps.
Well, I mean, if you went 10 feet lower, and it's only like 1/8% change in the area of coverage, then we probably look for the 10 feet lower, unless it doesn't cover Soledad, or if where it shrinks, there are no homes anyway, then why would we want it that high?
And why would AT&T?
Well,
Well, future,
Well, it was AT&T, right, up on Foreston area, where
it
they
was
looked at the shorter one, so they proposed a water tower, and they looked at the water tower at 75 feet, and they looked at it at 50 feet. And the modeling showed that the coverage at 50 feet was really almost the same as it was at 75 feet. So they said, you know, we want to be a good community player, so we're going to propose it at 50 feet. And that was something that they chose to do on their own.
yeah. So
So-
coverage map at 75, but maybe
Is this
50
equipment
as
that's
well.
going to be on the tower? I'm assuming the 75 feet might be because of the microwave backhaul on there, wherever it's going to connect to.
Yeah, is it 75 plus 17? Is that what you're asking?
is the
That's
backhaul,
right, top, it's to the top of the structure.
is the backhaul gonna be fiber, or is it microwave backhaul?
Honestly, I don't know the technical detail.
Okay, all right.
We can look and see what kind of lines, power lines and fiber and telco will run to the site.
Yeah, I'm just curious, because those look like microwave backhaul,
Yeah,
in which case you need line of sight, which might explain the height.
right. The question is the height for the cell phones or is the height for the backhaul?
Yes, well, and data, but not fixed point data.
So we go to utility, I'm sorry, I'm not super
No,
well
you're okay.
versed in the.
No, it's okay, it's more just sparked by the antenna array.
That's true.
So it's always a
She's
shooter.
Do you have the notes exactly?
No, but it's fine. And if you guys would like them, I can email you. I'll have coverage maps done for 20-foot increments.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be amazing.
That would be
About 75, 65 to 55 feet. Would that be adequate, or you want something
Let's
more?
go down to 50, so 50, yeah.
50.
50.
Yes.
Just a quick statement, so just looking at where the tower is proposed to be, is it visible from Soledad Canyon? Because, okay, I
Let's
know
take a
you're not
look.
from the area, but I know exactly where it is, you're right across from my property, and I don't think you can see anything. So that's another thing that should be, everyone's worried about what they can and can't see. I don't know if you can even see that from the road.
So they're going to generate for us computer modeled coverage maps of
Good.
how far the signal is going to travel.
This is over
And then you
my
guys can
line.
look at that and you can see, is this going to serve you? or not?
And also too, I mean, as far as it being too tall,
There's already towers
there's,
there.
and it's also right up against a mountain that's.
Right, so it may not appear.
Not only that, I mean, you guys do know where we're from, right?
Yeah.
Pulse Rosa, maybe Pulse Rosa would be a better spot for it, to get more canyon coverage.
But
With all due respect, we have a team that goes around. There are a lot of considerations that go beyond
Well,
what
if it's-
might be visible in
Yeah,
terms of also including,
It's
we
an
can't
option.
put them anywhere we want. If a property owner doesn't want a cell site, we can't force him. And so there are a
Well,
lot of
we're willing.
locations that
Yeah,
make it more
We
logical.
are willing.
Sorry?
They're the property, they own the property, they're saying they're willing.
Oh,
Right.
well,
So-
no, nobody wants to sell, whoops.
How many
No,
acres
it's
you
not.
guys? Pulse Rosa?
No,
They're-
my
they're-
point is that there are a lot of locations you could look at and say, that would be a good spot, that was a good spot. And there could be a million reasons why it's simply not a viable option. We canvass the area within a certain circle. And we pick the spot we think is best for all the considerations. So, yeah, I might look at some and go, why aren't we going there? And then I'll get a response, there's an easement we can't deal with. A property owner doesn't want it. It's zoned a particular way, and they won't allow us to get the height. Things aren't visible to you unless you
So
just
it's
drive.
way away from Pulse Rosa.
I don't doubt what you're saying would be a great spot.
Across the street.
It's an off street, but get a better angle down Soledad,
Yeah.
more coverage.
The canyon further down would get,
We're just saying that it's deep in the canyon, so
instead of it ending around that bend and getting cut off, the canyon would have a much more
Better
clear
signal.
shot.
One thing about these cell sites that often is misunderstood is their reach. And so if you have a cell site here,
Town that are not, do not already have CUPs. So for example, Grizzly Bear Burger has a CUP, right? So would not be, that is not a drive-through that would be, have to deal with what I'm about to mention here. But all the other drive-throughs, including the, the Jack in the Box, the McDonald's, and the drive-through for the car wash on Shell, with the adoption of the AV plan on June 16, 2019, became effective July 16, 2014, excuse me. They have 5 years to obtain a CUP for their drive-throughs. And the way the code is written is if you don't apply for your CUP before you have to have a CUP, then you're not operating in accordance with the code. Because what a CUP is it's a condition of use. So it's a permit that allows you to use the thing you want to use as long as you comply with the conditions that are imposed in the permit. So if you don't have a permit or you don't comply with the conditions in the permit, you're not supposed to have a use. And the code also is very clear, and I can cite the sections for you, but in the case of a use that is a non-conforming use, it was legally established, but then the code changed, requiring you to follow through a certain permit process. If you don't follow through that permit process, you have to remove the structure within the time frame. So the way the code is written, at least the way I read the code, these drive-through developments will have to literally take their drive-throughs out if they don't get their CUPs in time, or at least apply for them in time, and then they can get a clean hands waiver, potentially, or whatever the county's going to do for them. So we've mentioned this before, and we've reached out to the county, and the director of planning asked what sort of work are they doing with these facilities, because they're important parts of our community, to make sure that they don't get in some sort of enforcement trouble with the county. And we've never heard back. We sent an email, I think it was to Ms. Bodek, and CC'd, I think it was either Susie Tay or Mitch Glazer, asking what was going on. We've never heard anything. And I'm a little bit concerned about that, because not only will the CUP, when the county goes through the CUP process, those facilities will have to be brought into compliance with the CSD, including the signage and so on and so forth, lighting, externally lit lights. And I'm not hearing anything happening in that direction. So Well, that's only 3 months away, right? April, May, June, 4 months away. Before they're facing, according to the code, requirement to remove their facilities.
So you're saying that their CUPs need to be in process before June?
They haven't even applied for it. Now, I think that if they at least applied for it, they could get a clean hands waiver. But according, the way the clean hands waiver ordinance is written, it says that if the facility is not in compliance, they can't even apply for a CUP. You know what I mean? If they haven't applied for a CUP in time, they can't apply. They have to just remove the facility. You know what I mean? So, of course, the way the county interprets its own code is,
Well, we know that you can go 10 years without CUP or longer.
yeah, except for the difference is with Thousand Trails, it was established legally already with the CUP. Okay, so this is a situation where they've never had to get a CUP. There was no discretionary permit. Now they have to get a permit. They haven't even applied for it. So it's a little bit different situation. They did a clean hands waiver for Chiquita Canyon, but again, that was operating under CUP that expired in July of 2015, I think. So they got a clean hands waiver that carried them through July 2016 or 17, whatever it was. So they were covered the whole time. But, so there's some time for them to apply for a CUP. But I don't know if we're concerned about this at all.
Do they know that they need a CUP?
Well, that's the question. Do
I
they
don't
know?
know. We've asked the county
Well,
to
yeah.
ask them to coordinate and talk with them, but we've never heard anything back from the county.
And no one's ever talked to any of the businesses though?
Well, I don't know any. I don't know who owns Shell. I don't know who owns Jack in the Box. I know that McDonald's was sold and then sold again, and so I don't know who the current owner is.
Isn't it the folks that we?
Or maybe he rebought it. The original owner bought it back again. I'm not sure. I don't know. Pam's the one who knows all those things, so. Or we can just let it drop. I just want to keep it in our
I don't
conscience.
think that letting it drop is the right thing.
Have you guys reached out to Daniel Geringer at Regional Planning?
I don't think Dan was on our distribution list because he usually handles code enforcement. So if you need to see,
Yeah.
Dan would be the one who'd kick in on July 16th.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so, which we don't want to go there. That's not the, that's
We're trying
obviously
to
not
keep
the
from
direction.
that.
Yeah.
We're
be
trying
the
to prevent
outcome.
that, either through some sort of apply for a clean hands waiver now, if they're not going to be able to apply in time, or something. Whatever, I don't know what the county can
Do you
do.
have any, when was the last time we contacted, who did we contact at the county?
I think it was,
And how long?
it was probably in November, we voted to send it. It was probably in October, November, I'd
I
have to,
remember that.
I think it was an email, I don't think it was a letter, and I don't have internet access here, so.
Well, because what I'm wondering is if we need to
Resend it.
resend it, and
Okay.
possibly, I mean, should we just send it to each business address as well, like CC them on it, physical address is like just as a, hey, we think you guys ought to talk and coordinate, because this deadline as far as business
Do we want to do
visibility.
that? Because the last thing we did was just agree to contact regional planning and say, hey.
Well, I'm saying that didn't appear to have
Right.
approved anything, so if
Yeah.
we send it to both, I feel like we've gone then above and beyond what we need
Right.
to do anyway, to make sure that we've tried to connect the people that have
The
this.
Secretary of
With
State
that-
website will have the business addresses.
The who?
Secretary of State, those
Yeah,
businesses will
that's
be
true.
listed.
That's true. Or at least their service processes.
Right, wherever they take their official.
So we can do any of those things. Do you
That-
want to use a
that-
written letter then, or?
I think so, so that way there's something, because I don't think we have their email addresses, we couldn't really establish who, so at least something gets in, somebody's gonna go, oh, it's from the town council, maybe I should read this. There might be somebody.
It's from the town council.
Yeah,
No way.
I don't know. So something would probably be better at this point, than
Directly to them.
directly to them, and also to the county, and maybe say, hey, we're reaching out to both of you at this time to
Or
engender
just
something.
CC them on it.
CC the county?
Or
Or-
CC them on the correspondence to the county.
Okay, so write a letter, an
Yeah.
electronic letter to the county
Yeah.
and paper copies to the
Yeah,
businesses.
that works.
Okay?
It is worth, I mean, short of like literally going down to McDonald's and screaming, talk to a manager.
Well, I would never do that.
I don't know if that's.
They got that little kiosk where you can,
Yeah,
talk to it.
Believe it or not.
Yeah, I don't know what, the best recourse would be, and even then, they
It
might
seems
look
like
at
a
us all
good
as crazy.
solution.
That's as good as, I think, what we can do with this job.
Or go through the drive-through.
Yeah. Like to talk to the owner?
It's worse,
There's Mr. McDonald in there.
Is it likely that the county would simply do nothing and let the status quo remain?
I don't know.
I think that's entirely likely,
It's very
but I
possible.
also don't want that to be, I think if we at least have done this, if it comes back that, there is action taken and they're like, well, gee, we didn't even know, if we would have known, it's like, well, we tried to contact the county, I would feel good on my conscience that we tried to do what was right by at least doing this. So I'd want somebody to tell me if I was out of compliance with something or about to crash my car, I'd like to have a heads up, so.
But we've also, in the last time we talked about this was, there's signage needs to get fixed. And this was going to be the vehicle to get that fixed. Because, it's not the McDonald's and the water tower, which I understand was Romero, I don't know her name, the author. Thank you, that was her water tower, and so it'd be fine, but they might have to go through a variance process or some sort of part of their CUP, look at that. And I don't think, you've pointed out that McDonald's tower is sort of it's an icon, yeah. So, I mean, I'm interested in making sure it all captures everything that needs to be captured. Because there are a lot of concerns with it. This is just having your signage not comply is one thing, but having then a whole CUP that you haven't even applied for on your drive-through is a whole nother level of
And I think is
glare.
And I think as